Have you ever noticed how some people barely say a word, yet when they do, everyone listens? Meanwhile, others can talk all day and still be ignored. Why is that? What makes one voice command respect while another fades into the background? Here's the hard truth. Respect isn't given just because you speak. It's earned by how you speak. It's not about being the loudest in the room or the smartest person around. Some of the most respected speakers don't raise their voices at all. But when they talk, their words cut through the noise like a blade. People stop, lean in, and listen. Think of history's greatest leaders, thinkers, and warriors. Marcus Aurelius, Theodore Roosevelt, Sun Tzu. None of them begged for attention. They didn't waste words. Every sentence had weight. Every pause had power. And that's the key. In this video, I'm going to break down the exact ways you can speak so people feel your words, not just hear them. Some of these might make you nod in agreement. Others might hit you like a punch to the gut. But one thing is certain. If you apply these lessons, you will never be ignored again. If you're ready to transform the way people see you, to step into any room and have your words command respect, then stick with me till the end. This could change everything. If you're serious about mastering your presence, hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a life-changing lesson. Also, like this video to let the algorithm know that you're here to level up. Now, let's dive in. Now, let's begin. 1. Stop apologizing for existing. Let's talk about 2 little words that are quietly ruining your life. I'm sorry. Yeah, I said it. And no, I'm not sorry for saying it. You might think constantly apologizing makes you polite, but in reality, it makes you invisible. Every time you say sorry when you don't need to, you're shrinking yourself. You're telling the world, I don't deserve this space. I don't deserve to be heard. I'm probably in the wrong. And when you do that, people start to believe you. Think about it. How many times have you said, I'm sorry today? When someone bumped into you, did you say it? When you spoke up in a group, did you start with, sorry, but I just wanted to say? When you were 2 minutes late because of traffic, did you apologize like you committed a crime? Why? Did you really do something wrong? Or have you just been trained to apologize for simply existing? Here's the truth. Respect doesn't come from making yourself smaller. It comes from standing tall, speaking clearly, and owning your space. Marcus Aurelius once said, "A man's worth is no greater than his ambitions." And if your ambition is to go through life without upsetting anyone, without taking up too much space, without causing the slightest inconvenience, then don't be surprised when people start treating you like you don't matter. I learned this the hard way. I was in a meeting, making a point, when someone interrupted me. Without thinking, I said, "Oh, sorry, go ahead." And in that moment, it hit me. Why was I apologizing for being interrupted? Why was I giving away my voice so easily? That's when I decided to change. Every time I caught myself about to say, I'm sorry, I stopped and asked, do I actually owe someone an apology, or am I just afraid of taking up space? 9 times out of 10, there was no reason to apologize. I wasn't late. I was delayed. I wasn't bothering someone. I was asking for their time. I wasn't intruding. I was contributing. And when I stopped apologizing for nothing, something strange happened. People started listening. They started respecting me more. Respect starts with how you respect yourself. So let's rewrite the script. Instead of, sorry I'm late, try, thank you for waiting. Instead of, sorry for bothering you, try, do you have a moment? Instead of, sorry, can I say something? Try, I'd like to add something. You're not being rude, you're being clear. You're showing the world that you belong here. Seneca once said, It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. And wasting your life apologizing for things that don't require an apology? That's a habit that needs to go. So the next time you're about to say, "I'm sorry," pause. Ask yourself, do I truly need to apologize, or am I just afraid to stand my ground? Because the moment you stop saying sorry for no reason, the world will stop treating you like one. 2. Draw the line or get walked over. If you don't set boundaries, you're not being kind. You're being a doormat. That might sound harsh, but think about it. How many times have you said yes to something you didn't want to do just to avoid conflict? How often have you let someone cross a line just because you didn't want to seem difficult? Here's the truth. If you don't teach people how to treat you, they'll treat you however they want. And that usually means taking advantage of you. Boundaries aren't about shutting people out. They're about creating the rules of engagement for your life. No rules, no respect. Imagine trying to play a game where the other person can change the rules anytime they want. You'd lose every single time. That's what life feels like when you don't set boundaries. Other people make the calls, and you're just expected to go along with it. Let's be real. People love it when you have no boundaries. It means they can text you at 2 a.m. and expect a reply. It means they can dump last-minute work on you and know you'll stay late to fix it. It means they can guilt-trip you into doing things that benefit them, not you. And the moment you start setting boundaries, they're going to push back. I've been there. A close friend once asked me to help them move. I had other plans, so I said, "I can't help this time." Their response? "Wow, I thought I could count on you." And for a moment, I felt guilty. I almost caved. But then I realized this wasn't about me being a bad friend. This was about them not respecting my time. So I stuck to my answer. Guess what? They found someone else to help, and we're still friends. People adjust, but only if you hold the line. I'll never forget the day I realized my lack of boundaries was draining me. There was a coworker who always dumped last-minute tasks on me. Every time I said, "No problem, I'll handle it," because I wanted to seem helpful. But then I noticed a pattern. Every time I saved them, they did it again. One night, as I stayed late fixing their mess, I had a moment of clarity. Why am I prioritizing their laziness over my own time? The next time they tried it, I didn't give excuses. I just said, "I can't help with that right now. You'll need to figure it out." They pouted. They tried to guilt-trip me. And then they figured it out. And for once, I went home on time. Seneca once said, "He who is everywhere is nowhere." If you keep stretching yourself thin to please everyone, you'll end up empty. But here's the trick. You have to stick to your boundaries. If you set them, but then cave, you're teaching people that your limits are negotiable. That's when they start testing you, pushing, guilt-tripping, trying to find cracks. And if you let them through once, they'll keep doing it. So how do you start? Practice saying no to the little things. Decline an invitation you don't want to accept. Stop replying to texts the second you get them. When someone asks for a favor that doesn't fit your priorities, say, "I won't be able to do that." No long explanations. No apologies. No guilt. Setting boundaries isn't easy. It's uncomfortable. It will ruffle some feathers. But the alternative? Living a life where everyone else's needs come before your own. And let me tell you from experience, that's a fast track to burnout and resentment. The only people who get mad about your boundaries are the ones who benefited from you not having them. And honestly, good riddance. 3. Silence speaks louder than words. Did you feel that? That slight tension in the air? That moment where you were waiting for what comes next? That's the power of silence. Most people are terrified of it. The moment there's a pause in a conversation, they rush to fill it with words, rambling, over-explaining, saying things they don't even need to say. But here's the thing. A pause isn't empty. It's where your power lives. We live in a world that worships speed. Fast talkers are seen as sharp, confident, and persuasive. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Talking fast doesn't make you effective. It makes you forgettable. People hear you, but they don't listen. Imagine music with no breaks, no rests, no silence between the notes. Just a non-stop barrage of sound. It wouldn't be music, it would be noise. Speech works the same way. A pause is what gives rhythm, weight, and impact to your words. It's not about talking less. It's about making every word matter. I wasn't always good at this. In fact, I was terrible at it. I thought confidence meant never shutting up. In meetings, on dates, during casual conversations, I was always filling the air, afraid that silence would make me seem unsure. But it didn't make me look smart. It didn't make me look confident. It made me exhausting. One day, I was pitching an idea at work. I went on and on, over-explaining, adding unnecessary details, rushing through my points. By the time I finished, I looked around and realized I had lost them. Their eyes were glazed over. They had checked out. Afterward, my manager pulled me aside and said, "You've got great ideas, but you don't give people time to process them." Ouch! That was my wake-up call. I started experimenting with pauses. At first, it felt uncomfortable. I'd say something, then stop and let it sink in. Every instinct screamed at me to fill the gap. But when I resisted, something amazing happened. People started paying attention. Instead of zoning out, they were leaning in. They weren't just hearing me anymore. They were listening. The moment that truly changed everything for me was during a presentation. I slowed down. I let key points hang in the air. I let silence do some of the talking. Afterwards, someone came up to me and said, "That was so powerful." It felt like every word mattered. That's when I knew. It's not just what you say, it's how you say it. A pause is more than a speaking technique. It's a display of presence. It's a sign that you trust your words enough to let them breathe. It's confidence without arrogance. It's power without force. And that's exactly why it commands respect. But let's address the doubt in your mind. Maybe you're thinking, if I pause, people will think I don't know what to say. They'll assume I'm lost. Let me flip that for you. Pausing doesn't make you look unsure. It makes you look deliberate. It tells people, I am thinking, I am intentional, and I am not afraid of a little silence. Look at history's greatest leaders. Marcus Aurelius, Winston Churchill, Martin Luther King Jr. Did they rush their words? Number. They used silence like a weapon. When they spoke, they owned every moment. They let their pauses create anticipation, tension, and power. Seneca once said, "As long as you live, keep learning how to live." The art of pausing isn't just about speech. It's about life. It's about knowing when to slow down, when to let things breathe, when to let the silence speak louder than words. So the next time you feel the urge to fill the air with chatter, resist. Hold the pause. Let the moment hang. Lean into the discomfort. Because when you master the pause, you don't just gain respect. You own the room. See what I did there? 4. Be funny, not a fool. Humor is like fire. Controlled, it warms people up, builds connections, and makes you memorable. But if you overdo it, if you throw it around carelessly, it burns your credibility to the ground. There's nothing wrong with being funny. In fact, humor is one of the most powerful tools you can use to win respect. It breaks tension, makes you more likable, and even makes you seem smarter. Yeah, studies back that up. But here's the hard truth. If you don't use humor wisely, it will work against you. Think about it. Have you ever met someone who just won't stop joking? At first, they're entertaining, but after a while, they start to feel exhausting. You start wondering, do they even take anything seriously? Do they ever have a real thought, or is everything just a punchline? That's the problem. If you rely too much on jokes, people stop seeing you as someone to respect and start seeing you as someone to laugh at. I used to be that guy, the one who always had a joke ready, even when the moment didn't call for it. I thought I was being charming. In reality, I was undermining myself. I'll never forget the moment it hit me. I was in a meeting and I cracked a joke about my own workload. Something like, "Oh, I'm just here to make spreadsheets look pretty." Everyone laughed. I felt good. But after the meeting, my manager pulled me aside and said, "You're too good at what you do to downplay yourself like that." That hit hard. I realized that while humor was getting me attention, it wasn't always the kind of attention I wanted. People were laughing, sure, but were they respecting me? Or was I just making myself smaller to entertain them? Humor is an incredible tool. But here's the key. It has to serve a purpose. Are you using humor to connect with people, or are you using it to deflect? Are you lightening the mood, or are you trying to avoid discomfort? Are you making people feel at ease, or are you begging for approval? Self-deprecating humor is a perfect example. Used right, it shows humility and relatability. It makes people feel comfortable around you. But if you use it too much, if you make yourself the butt of every joke, people will start believing you. There's a fine line between laughing with people and giving them permission to laugh at you. And here's another trap, using humor as a shield. I know because I've done it. Whenever I got critical feedback, I'd crack a joke to deflect. Whenever I felt uncomfortable in a serious conversation, I'd turn it into a laugh fest. It became my escape. But you know what happened? People stopped taking me seriously. They stopped seeing me as someone with depth, someone worth listening to. Seneca once said, "A joke is often the weapon of the weak." That doesn't mean humor is bad. It means that when used incorrectly, it's a sign of insecurity, not confidence. Respect doesn't come from being the funniest person in the room. It comes from knowing when to be funny and when to be serious. The trick is balance. Humor should add to the conversation, not take away from it. It should make people feel connected, not distracted. And most importantly, it should reflect your confidence, not your insecurities. A well-timed joke can show that you're sharp, in control, and socially intelligent. But a constant stream of jokes, that makes you look like you're trying too hard. And let's not forget, humor can be risky. Sarcasm, for example, can make you look witty or make you look like a jerk. Dark humor? Same deal. It all depends on how it lands. And the worst thing you can do? Tell a joke that bombs because you didn't read the room. There's nothing more cringeworthy than watching someone try too hard to be funny and completely miss the mark. At its core, humor is a form of communication. And like any other form of communication, it's a reflection of who you are. Are you using it to build people up or to tear them down? To mask your insecurities or to show your confidence? Because here's the truth. Respect isn't about how many people laugh at your jokes. It's about how your humor makes them feel. So the next time you're about to crack a joke, pause and ask yourself, what's my intent? Am I using humor to connect, or am I hiding behind it? Because when you strike that balance, when you use humor with purpose and confidence, you're not just funny. You're unforgettable. And if all else fails, dad jokes. Just make sure they're not terrible. 5. Stop talking. Start earning respect. Gossip is like junk food. It feels good in the moment, gives you a quick hit of excitement. But in the long run, it rots your credibility, weakens your character, and leaves you with nothing but regret. We've all been there. Someone leans in, drops a juicy piece of information about someone else, and suddenly, we're hooked. It feels like social currency, like we're part of some exclusive club. But here's the brutal truth. Gossip doesn't make you look interesting. It makes you look untrustworthy. Think about it. The person listening to you today, they're laughing, nodding, maybe even adding their own bit to the story. But deep down, they're also thinking, if they talk like this about someone else, what do they say about me? And the moment they start questioning whether they can trust you, respect is gone. I learned this the hard way. There was a guy I worked with, let's call him Dave. Dave had a habit of showing up late. One day, in a casual conversation, I made a joke. Man, Dave must have an alarm clock that hates him. It was nothing serious, just an offhand comment. But before I knew it, that little joke spread like wildfire. People started adding their own bits to the story. Dave is lazy. Dave doesn't care about his job. Dave is this. Dave is that. And then? Dave found out who started the whole thing. And here's the kicker. Dave wasn't just being careless. He was late because he was taking care of his sick mother. That moment hit me like a brick. What I thought was harmless gossip was actually cruel. I had taken a cheap shot at someone's life without knowing the full story. And the worst part? It wasn't just Dave who lost respect for me. Other people did too. Because if I could say something about him, what stopped me from doing the same to them? Seneca once said, "Speech reflects the soul. As a man speaks, so is he." And that's the truth. What comes out of your mouth tells people everything they need to know about who you are. But let's be honest, gossip isn't really about the person you're talking about. It's about you. Why do people gossip? Because deep down, it's a way to feel superior. It's a way to say, hey, don't look at my flaws, look at theirs. It's a way to be interesting without actually being interesting. But here's the harsh reality. When you gossip, people aren't thinking about the person you're trashing. They're questioning your integrity. And let's flip it for a second. What happens when you refuse to gossip? What happens when you're the person who doesn't engage in the drama? People notice. They see you as someone who can be trusted, someone who doesn't need to tear others down to feel important, someone who actually has substance. When I decided to stop gossiping, everything changed. At first, it felt weird. I'd be in the middle of one of those, "Oh my God, did you hear about?" conversations. And instead of joining in, I'd just say something neutral like, "I hope they're doing okay." It was uncomfortable. But over time, something incredible happened. People started coming to me for advice instead of gossip. They saw me as someone who handled things maturely, not someone who weaponized secrets. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." And if all you do is spread negativity, what does that say about you? Gossip doesn't just hurt other people, it hurts you. It chips away at your credibility, your relationships, and even your self-respect. When you drop the gossip, you make a statement. I don't need to build myself up by tearing someone else down. That's where true respect comes from. And let's be real for a second. When you're known as the person who always has the gossip, you're also known as the person who can't keep their mouth shut. And you know what happens to those people? They don't get promoted. They don't get trusted with real information. And worst of all, they're the ones left out when the real conversations happen. So yeah, maybe ditch the gossip train. It's not going anywhere good. At the end of the day, ask yourself, what kind of person do I want to be? Someone who spreads negativity and mistrust? Or someone who lifts others up? Gossip feels good in the moment, sure. But respect? That's something that lasts. And respect doesn't come from spilling the tea. It comes from being the person who refuses to pour it. 6. Talk less, be heard more. Here's an uncomfortable truth. Most people talk too much. They ramble, over-explain, fill every silence, and don't even realize that the more they talk, the less people listen. And you know what that's costing them? Respect. Silence is one of the most powerful tools you can use, yet most people are terrified of it. The moment there's a pause in a conversation, they panic. What if they think, I don't know what I'm talking about? What if they lose interest? And so, they keep going. They repeat themselves. They add unnecessary details. They over-explain every little thing. But here's the truth. When you talk too much, you don't sound more confident. You sound insecure. I learned this the hard way. I was pitching an idea to a client. I had them hooked in the first 30 seconds. I could see the interest in their eyes. But instead of stopping and letting my words land, I kept talking. I rephrased my idea, added more details, tried to answer questions they hadn't even asked yet. And what happened? Instead of looking engaged, they started looking confused. I had smothered my own message. After the meeting, my boss pulled me aside and said, "You had them in the first 30 seconds, but then you lost them. You need to learn when to stop talking." That hit me hard. I realized I wasn't giving people space to process what I was saying. I wasn't letting my words breathe. Here's the controversial part. Sometimes, the more you talk, the less people listen. It's like pouring water into a glass that's already full. If you keep pouring, it just overflows, and nothing stays in. But if you stop at the right moment, that's when your words actually stick. Think about the greatest speeches in history. They weren't long, never-ending lectures. They were sharp, concise, deliberate. They left an impact because they knew when to stop. Martin Luther King Jr. didn't say, "I have a dream," and also a few more thoughts I'd like to add. He dropped his message with power and let it sink in. But let's be real, silence can feel awkward. You say something, and instead of an instant reaction, there's a pause. Your brain starts screaming, "Say something else, fill the gap." But that pause, that's not your enemy. That's where people actually process what you've said. That's where your words go from noise to meaning. When I started practicing this in my own life, everything changed. At family gatherings, I used to be the one always filling silences, cracking jokes, explaining my opinions at length. One day, I decided to just stop. I said my piece, then let the conversation flow. You know what happened? People actually noticed me more. They started asking for my thoughts instead of tuning me out. It was like I had gone from background noise to a focal point. Seneca once said, "It is a great thing to know the season for speech and the season for silence." And that's exactly what most people don't understand. Talking less isn't about withholding ideas. It's about making sure your words actually land. When you talk too much, you give away your power. But when you speak with control, when you leave just enough silence for your words to settle, you command attention. But let me guess. Maybe you're thinking, won't I sound uninterested or disengaged if I stop talking too soon? In fact, it's the opposite. When you stop at the right moment, it shows that you trust your words to stand on their own. It shows confidence, not hesitation. And if someone wants to hear more, they'll ask. That's how you know your words had weight. The key is to leave the conversation at its peak. Have you ever been at a party where someone stayed too long, and by the end, you were just waiting for them to leave? The same thing happens in conversations. If you keep talking past the point of impact, people don't remember the good parts. They just remember that you didn't know when to stop. So next time you're in a conversation, try this. Say what you mean, then stop. Let the silence do its job. Because when you master the art of knowing when to stop talking, you don't just gain respect. You own the room. See what I did there?